New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Oh, good morning, everyone. It's morning here in California. It's it's right at 8 o'clock right now. And it's wonderful to be talking to you this morning. And I just want to let you know that, we have been here in Southern California, we've been impacted by the fires in LA. And it is almost unbelievable, right? I'm in Riverside, so I'm inland. And we haven't had the devastation that has occurred in the LA area, but we are still feeling the effects of it, in air quality and that kind of thing. And also, it's so close that we are impacted by the evacuations and that kind of thing. So as we move into this morning, and we're talking about this wonderful philosophy, the science of mind and spirit. And, this is what we study these things for, because we do have these kinds of situations that occur in life, things that, are in our personal life that can be devastating, and things that are, more collective, that devastate whole communities and states and regions. So that's where we are this morning. And I just want to recognize that we're in 2025, and this is a new year, and a new year always gives us that new energy. And it's always great to go back to the very beginning of the book and follow it through. We get led from the very beginning, and some concepts are introduced that can seem a little bit opaque or confusing. And yet we go through the book little by little, and more is revealed. In fact, this chapter starts out, talking about revelation. And, this is interesting topic, because we look at, this is a part of our philosophy as well, that things are revealed to us as we study, as we do our spiritual practice. There's revelations that we receive. Those are deep insights that don't necessarily come from, the intellect. They come from a very richer, deeper place for us. And of course, Ernest Holmes is studying philosophy at this point, and he's a very young man with a nimble mind, and very curious, and he's pulling all these things together to develop his own way of understanding these concepts. And one of the things that we talk about, it's science of mind, the science of our minds, right? And what is mind? What is science? And spirit. So all of those things are being interrogated as Ernest Holmes goes through his own process of bringing this knowledge together and understanding it and coming to an understanding of it, a deeper and deeper understanding of it. And this was a lifelong project. Ernest Holmes didn't wake up and have all of this in his mind. It was a lifelong project of study and following a spiritual path, bringing the science of mind, which we probably would, I think most people would agree that the science of mind would be kind of in the Buddhist realm. The Buddhists really, really, really go into what is the nature of mind? What is this thing we call mind? And what is different with science of mind and spirit is that it's integrated. How do we look at spirit? What is spirit's role in this? How do we bring those things together? And of course, when Ernest Holmes began, he was in the 20th century. So there's all these things around science that are coming out. Science is kind of in full bloom at this point. So all of these things are coming in, and there's new discoveries in physics that are having an impact on the way that people understand, where we come from, right? How things have evolved, how things are began, all of that. So there's these new understandings, and Ernest Holmes is right in that, and trying to bring it together in some way that makes sense to him and is useful to everyday people. Now, sometimes when we read the textbook, it does seem a little bit obscure, and there's so much packed in here. And there is also this idea of assumptions, right? Assumptions that we know this in some way, right? We're familiar with some of these things, but of course, not everybody is. Not everybody has studied philosophy. Not everyone has, really delved deeply into the origins of the different kinds of uh, religions that they follow. They follow it by rote or by something that is given to them. So that would be something that maybe a minister or a priest, or it's somehow mediated. And Ernest Holmes, of course, is bringing this to us in, he is mediating it as the person that is presenting it. However, he is always looking for that direct experience of God, right? Of spirit. And I'm sorry, I'm getting over some kind of weird virus, so I might be a little bit congested this morning. And we're starting with the way it works. And, that's a big question, right? That's a question we're still working on in every area of science. How does it work? We can put it in any field, a health field, we can put it in the cosmological field, we can put it in all kinds of places. How does it work? From mechanical things, all the way up to biological systems and, cosmological systems as well. And this is what we are going toward, bringing it together. And he starts us out by saying that it's not any special revelation. Science mind isn't any special revelation of any individual, but it's a culmination of all revelations. So, that is a nod to those, his project of synthesizing, bringing things together. And how does this fit Where does it fit? How do we get a new way of looking at the world as a result of bringing things into dialogue with one another? And that's what I love about Ernest Holmes, is that is what he does. He tries to bring things into dialogue with one another. And of course, he comes from the United States. This is where he was born, firmly in the US and in Western culture. And this is his starting point. And Western culture, and of course Western culture, extremely influenced by Western Christianity. So we have that thread running through here as well as the ancient philosophers. And in particular, we're looking at Neoplatonism informing the work of Ernest Holmes. So these are the revelations, right? These are the revelations that he's talking about. And he says we take good wherever we find it, make it our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that good is universal, and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate into their life is theirs to use. It's what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. So let's look at each one of these things. He capitalizes good, the first letter of good, G-O-O-D, right? And so we can see that that's an important, he's emphasizing good as a quality and, almost using it interchangeably. Well, I would say, yes, he's using it interchangeably with God. God, good, right? And we look at this, God is only good, right? Good. So that is that singular power is good. And for Neoplatonism, right? Platonists say that there is this one source. And this is what Ernest Holmes is pointing toward. This one source of everything. There's not a whole bunch of sources. There's only one source. This one source is good. There's not a bunch of warring deities. There's only one source of all good. And it's interesting to look at this, that there is this one source and everything comes from that one source. So there, this whole idea of how do we get here, right? We come from the one source, but look, there's all this stuff, right? There's many. So how is it ordered? How is it put together? How do we understand the order of things? And there is this order that he lays out in the Science of Mind textbook, what we call the Science of Mind textbook now. And we, as human beings, are individualized centers of expression of this one. So this is this is the fundamental step in understanding science of mind and spirit. We are individualized centers of this one. So we're an expression of it. And we express in a multitude of ways, but there's only one. And this is, what the whole teaching is about, right? Man, humankind's intelligence is the universal mind, okay? The one, the mind of the one, and functioning through us at our concept of it. So there's a lot of room here, right? We are not grasping the entirety of it. He doesn't cut off the possibility that we might be able to grasp the enormity of it at some point in our evolution, right? However, we are subject to our own concept as individuals of this one. So this is the origin of everything, this universal mind, spirit, intelligence. It's the origin of everything. First cause, we can use that. That's an old philosopher's term, first cause. And I have to point out, the Neoplatonists were coming out of Alexandria, Egypt. So, of course, Egypt is in Africa. So we're seeing this thought not located, in Greece, right? As is, we have a lot of Western philosophy. The origins are Greece. However, this thought is emanating from Alexandria in Egypt. So it's coming from Africa, from the continent of Africa, and moving into this really fertile intellectual ground that is that Mediterranean area, right? That's where these thoughts are emanating from. These revelations are emanating from, and we're able to access them because they have survived, countless wars and devastation, natural disasters, all that kind of thing. They've survived as writings, as oral transmissions. They have survived in that way. So we have, this etymology that we can go to and look at. Yes, this is the genealogy of this thought. And first cause is God. He calls it God, first cause. And it's universal life and energy. And it is found in everything. Everything, right? There's nothing that doesn't have this universal life and energy. Everything that lives has it. So he doesn't say everything, right, in terms of, like dust particles, things like that. But everything that is alive has this energy. So it's not animism. It is something that is specific to living things. And, he goes on to say that there's only one life back of everything that lives. So again, that only one life. And that's where we get that whole phrasing. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. We get that phrase or that mantra from these teachings. And he quotes Acts 17:28. In him we live, move, and have our being. And of course, this is referring to that God stuff. In him we live, move, and have our being. And this is found This thought is found throughout the Hebrew Bible and into the New Testament. So we've got Christianity coming in here, as well as this Neoplatonism that precedes it by many, many years, millennia, I think. So we've got all of this coming together in this thought. So he says that we can use it, right? And what does that mean? Consciously or unconsciously, the life in which we live is the universal life expressing through us. Else, how could we live? Right? Yeah, we're energized by something. How could we not live if we don't have this energy that's animating us, that is living through us, that, is that spark that sets us in motion? Our thought and emotion is the use we make, consciously or unconsciously, of this original creative thing that is the cause of everything. Therefore, we shall say that the mind, spirit, and intelligence which we find in ourselves is as much of this original creative God as we understand. That this is not robbing God is a self-evident fact. Since we are, then we are real and actual and have existence. And since we can reduce all that is to a fundamental unit, we find that we have this proposition. There's spirit, or this invisible cause, and nothing out of which all things are to be made. Now, spirit plus nothing leaves spirit only. Hence, there is only one original cause and nothing out of which we are made. In other words, we are made from this thing. That is why we are called the Son of God. And, he uses, forgive me, he uses these older languages, language use by, using the masculine. But we can say siblings, we can say children, we can say offspring, progeny, whatever. But we are the progeny. I'll choose progeny of God. So all of us, humanity is the progeny of God. And, he's very emphatic. There's no other way that this can be. First cause is all there is. It's made out of nothing. So if there's only nothing in God, God is all there is. So it makes sense, right? It's not convoluted at all. He's just basically saying God is all there is. If there was nothing and only God and all of this is created, there's only God. It's made out of God. So that is self-evident. And, he takes in this next section. Let's look at this one passage, and I think this is really good. I've outlined it many, many times. Since we are the progeny of God, if God is to interpret itself to humanity, it must interpret itself through humanity. And the Spirit can make no gift that we do not accept. And that's an interesting concept, right? God is interpreting itself through us. So what God is, we are. And, interpretation is interesting, right? Let's think about that as, how do we move and have our being? We can even think about it in dance, right? We're interpreting something, emotions and experience. We're interpreting that through the movement of our body. Interpreting also can be, how are we translating God. And this is where things get very, very tricky, right? Is, when we have language, which is symbolic, it's very difficult to interpret from one language to another, because there are concepts that don't exist in between those languages. So I think this is more what we're kind of the idea that we're getting, but we're looking at this whole, right? Movement, experience, embodied experience, dance, right? Is a good metaphor. And we're looking at also words, a different language. So God speaks God language, and we're interpreting it. We're learning it. We're learning this God language, and we're interpreting it. And God is interpreting through us, right? This is a movement. There's a reciprocity here, right? And I'm really intrigued by this last sentence of this passage. And spirit can make no gift that we do not accept. That's interesting, isn't it? And, I think as we move along, that we'll find out more about exactly what that means. But the promise is that, there's all these gifts that God has given us. We have these gifts all around us, and all we have to do is accept them. And the promise is that we will accept all these gifts as we evolve spiritually. In this next portion, I think this is always confusing to people to think about perfection. When we look at our lives and we think, well, my life's not perfect. I'm not perfect. Look at me. I'm super skinny and I can't gain weight, or, you're on the other end of the spectrum and you don't feel good, whatever it might be, right? I'm not perfect. How many times have you heard that? I'm not perfect. It's in all kinds of songs, right? About perfection and not being perfect. And, this is what we're examining. What is that? The seed of perfection is hidden within. The original life is infinite. It is good. Okay, so we accept that. It's infinite. It's good. It's filled with peace. And I love thinking about just, the simplicity of this. The original life is infinite. Life goes on. Life is everlasting. We can look all around us and see evidence of that. And we can look to the heavens and still see evidence of this ongoing cosmic dance of life. And it is good, right? He emphasizes this over and over again. It's good. There's no mention of evil. It's good. And it's filled with peace. Very simple. It is the essence of purity. It is the ultimate of intelligence. It is power. It is law. It is life. It is in us. Okay, this is important. All those things are in us. Goodness, the infinite, peace, purity, the ultimate of intelligence, all that is in us. And that is our nature. And this is the beauty of this, right? I mean, we can look to other philosophers who, don't have such a high opinion of humanity. But this is from that metaphysical God space, right? This is the birthright of humanity. So there's that seed of perfection that resides in us. And, he emphasizes right now immediately that in our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. So ignorance, right, is ignorance of the truth of our perfection. We have misused the highest power we possess. And that's because we can have it all, right? We can have all of it because we are those emanations of God. He's already told us that Spirit can make no gift that we do not accept, right? So our ignorance of our perfection and our misuse of this power that we have been given because of our ignorance of our perfection causes the suffering that we find ourselves in now. And this goes from the individual to families, to communities, to nations, right? This spreads out. So this is our charge, right? How do we use this in a way that is to our highest good? And he brings up the passage from Jesus who says, "It is done unto you as you believe." And isn't it interesting? We can have all these conditions outside of ourselves. We can have, yes, social conditioning. Society says, oh, so and so is not as good as this other person because they lack this, and this, or they are these things, right? Denying the inherent perfection in each individual. So that's our ignorance of that truth. So we cut off a whole, individuals and whole groups of people as a result of our ignorance of the truth of that perfection. And also, what I love about all these things that enter into this teaching, he says, the great teacher looked so deeply into nature that she revealed her fundamental simplicity to him, that believe and that as symbolize heaven and hell. And so we suffer not because suffering is imposed upon us, but because we are ignorant of our own true nature. So there's no suffering that is imposed upon us. Doesn't matter what those outside things are, those outside voices. We may be interpreting those outside voices saying you're no good, right? Or even those inner voices that say, you have all these imperfections. How are you ever going to do this or that or the other, right? We are ignorant of that, our own true nature. And because of that, we take on that, we resist, we fight, we do all this stuff instead of just allowing this light to shine through and break down all of those things that are mental things in our own mind. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are breaking down those systems with that realization, but it is a first step, and it is our shield, right? Our shield to go into whatever kind of circumstances that there might be, knowing who we are truly. There's nothing that can stand against that, knowing who you truly are and showing up that way, right? And spirit, the next heading is spirit works for us by working through us. So look at this. We've got this beloved that travels side by side with us. My goodness. This beloved travels side by side through us, works through us, allows us to see the truth, the unvarnished truth, nothing that is impure, nothing that is unwholesome. All of that nobility. That's who we are. And, this is all up to us, right? It's all an inside job. And he goes on to say, it cannot work for us any other way. It spreads itself over the whole universe. It's everywhere. And shouts at us from every angle. But it can become power to us only when we recognize it as power. We cannot recognize that it is while we are believing that it is not. Oh my goodness, those doubts, right? It's easy to get into, one of those doubting matches with yourself, right? And and he goes on to say, hence it is written, they enter not because of unbelief, Hebrews 4:6. So, there's heaven and hell. It's of our own making. When we believe in the goodness of God, we believe in our own goodness, we enter into heaven. Simple, right? Simple. But not easy. And, he uses a lot of these metaphors, a house divided against itself, and those kinds of things, because we can't enter into heaven when we have unbelief in who we are, right? Have unbelief in the goodness of God. And he quotes Emerson. If we say we can only experience a little good, then we shall experience but a little good. But if we say with Emerson, there is no great, no small, to the soul that maketh all, then we may experience a greater good because we have conceived it. And this is our work, really. Conceiving of the greater good all of the time. That's the creative act. We do have a limited perception at this point in our evolution. We still have the blinders on, and yet those blinders can open up, and we're enlightened at that point. We're enlightened, and we can take it all in, right? We can experience all the good, all of the good. So, it depends on our belief. What do we believe? Are we going to believe that it's impossible to solve our problems? Are we going to believe that this universe is good and the solutions are there? And we come together with kindness and compassion with one another and conceive this as a goodness. So it's not a question of God's willingness to help us, or of its ability to help us. It's entirely a question of our own receptivity. There's all kinds of things about, I always go back to that great joke about the man who is in this flood, and, he's received orders to evacuate, and he decides, no, I'm going to wait until, God helps me. And so he stays in his home, and somebody comes by and says, come on, I'll take you out of here. He says, no, I'm waiting for God. Then, the water rises, and, he goes up to he goes higher and higher in his house, and the water rises, the boat comes by. Guy says, come on, I'll take you out of here. He says, no, I'm waiting for God to do something. And then he goes up on the roof. Helicopter comes in and says, come on, we're going to rescue you now. And he says, no, I'm waiting for God. And then, his house is washed away in the flood, and he goes to heaven, and he says, God, why didn't you help me? And God says, well, I sent you a car, I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter, and you didn't accept it, right? So he wasn't receptive to all the help that was there. So I think that is our, that's our I guess all I can say is that's our ego getting in the way, right? It has to be a certain way or it's not God. This is my understanding of God. And if it doesn't happen that way, it's not going to happen, right? If it doesn't fit my idea of what it's supposed to be, then no, it's no good, right? And yet, if we are receptive, things work out. All the help we need, all the resources we need, everything comes together to create that good life for us. So, as much as we can believe will be done to us. And there is that incredible, incredible goodness at the heart of it. And he goes on and on to talk about this good only, not good and evil. Now, we're really stuck in that dichotomy of good and evil, right? And, we can, in this philosophy, we can look at those things that are done out of ignorance of the truth are a misuse of this incredible power that we've been given. There's only good in the world, and we can use it as our touchstone, as our sanctuary, as that creative force. We can use it in our lives, and it uses us, right? There's a reciprocity here that goes on and on. And goodness, one power, duality, only unity rather than duality. And he exhorts us, let's accept more good today than we experienced yesterday. What a concept. Let's accept more good today than we experienced yesterday, and know that we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. The time must come when we shall have left the apparent evil behind, when it shall be rolled up like a scroll and numbered with the things which were once thought to be. Let us realize and work with this sound knowledge and perfect faith, that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation of our material world. And this is our work, right? To see the world with new eyes, to see that there's only good in the world. When there's these corrections or these things that are out of balance, there's a course correction that comes up, a reminder of what we are to do, right? What are we to do? A reminder of accepting the good that is present all around us, that is in us, to see one another as those beautiful souls. And when we do that, that's when we truly experience and see heaven around us. So everyone, it is wonderful to be with you in this new year, to reaffirm that we live in this universe that was created by goodness, by love, by this one power, this one presence, this magnificence. So again, we study the science of mind and this textbook every week, Saturdays, same time, same place, and really anytime in any place that you watch this recording. And I know that we will have a wonderful week next week with Reverend Rodney Giddens, who is a absolutely wonderful, wonderful minister, and he will do an incredible job with the next chapter. And remember that this program is brought to you through your donations, and we love the support, and we love having you with us, energizing this wonderful project with your donations and well wishes. And see you next time.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.